Hi everyone, really happy to have you with me here today. Today we're tackling a topic that a lot of you have expressed concern about. I created some polls on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, asking you guys how you feel about typology and what the most confusing aspects related to it are. And consistently, the answer that had the most votes was the correlation between cognitive functions and behavior. So we will look at that in the next few minutes. Before that, if you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's dive in. So, what about these cognitive function behavioral correlations? Well, you see, as I mentioned in a video that I made about a month ago or so, cognitive functions are not the same thing as behavior. They influence behavior to a certain extent. There are certain hints in our behavior that can remind us about cognitive functions, but they are not the same thing. So, if someone is routine focused, if someone likes tradition, it does not mean necessarily that they are an introverted sensing type. If someone is good at planning, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're an introverted intuitive type. If someone makes a decision based on their values, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are an introverted feeling type, okay? Why? Because cognitive functions are not concrete. They're not objects or behaviors that we can see and touch. Cognitive functions are certain abstract ideas or metaphors that describe the way our mind works, but only to a certain extent, because our mind is much more than cognitive functions. So we don't just have cognitive function input and then direct behavior output, but more so than that, we have cognitive function input, many other types of input, and then behavioral output. What this means is that in order to get to that behavior, we have a big bowl where we put together a lot of different ingredients. The cognitive functions and what they're saying, personal values that the person has, and here these values can be different from person to person. Some people value, money more than others. Some people value friendship more than others. Some people value family more than others, and so on and so forth, okay? Then we have other things like personal experiences. People are shaped by things that they did, things that they lived, traumas that they went through, things that they learned throughout their lives, and so on and so forth. And this personal history that is completely unique to every human comes into play. Next, we have things such as future plans, things that are important to us and things that we want to accomplish in the future. They also become an ingredient in this big bowl. Then we have things such as influences from our culture and religion. Cultures are very different from each other, religions are very different from each other, and sometimes they really shape the way that we think and the way that we make decisions and the things that we take into account when making decisions. So we will have religion and culture coming into this bowl as well. What else could we add here? Other, let's say, mental processes like imagination, like memory, like, processing or understanding something, trying to find correlations between things. Things that are inherently human, that all humans have the ability to focus on memory, to use memory, to imagine things, to plan things, and so on and so forth. Now, I say all humans, generally, of course, there are some differences here when it comes to different brain, malfunctions, but generally speaking, we have these things in everyone. And again, memory is not the same thing as introverted sensing. Imagination is not the same thing as extroverted intuition. It's much more than that, okay? So, we have all of these things coming together in a big bowl, and many others. I'm sure I didn't come up with all possible answers to this, but the idea is that we put so many ingredients together. They all have a role, they all play a part in this, let's say, chemical reaction that happens before the behavior. And they all influence the result or the output to a certain extent. So, coming back to the idea that I mentioned at the beginning, if someone is, let's say, traditionalistic, likes a routine, likes doing things at the same time every day, it does not necessarily mean that they are an introverted sensing type. They could be, very likely, but it's also possible that they are an introverted feeling type. And maybe the explanation as to why they do things, routinely, or the explanation as to why they like keeping to this tradition is because the things that they do are very much aligned with their value system. The things that they do repeatedly are things that really portray their values. So maybe that's why they decide to do it routinely. This is just to show you that because of different reasonings that come as a result of that function, the same behavior can come as a result of, different sources, or can come from different sources. Now, if I also take into account the perspective of values, maybe someone values routine per se because, I don't know, their culture or their family or their religion made them believe that tradition is important, even though maybe they're not an SJ, maybe they are an NP or an NJ or an SP or whatever. And to a certain extent, even, SPs or NPs can be routine focused. Again, it depends on why they do it. Sometimes NPs do it because they want to honor someone that they care about, and they want to show that they are consistent, dependent, and loyal to someone they really care about. So they will find a few things that they think should be done routinely, and they will do it to show their loyalty and consistency. At the same time, an SP might also value doing things routinely because based on the experience that they have accumulated, based on the concrete things that they tried out, they found a few things that they really like. They found a few things that really, match them and their perception and the things that they enjoy. And for that matter, they decided to do it consistently because they love it. Okay, so there's a lot more nuance here. And my point is that it's so important to not judge things so superficially, so quickly, because we might risk reducing someone to a stereotype without really trying to understand what their backstory is, without really trying to understand who that person is, what's important to them. And again, I'm going to say this, your MBTI type or your Enneagram type or any other type of person, personality theory, whatever, is not completely who you are. You are much more than your type. You are your values, you are your behaviors, you are your experiences, your culture, your religion, your ideas, your career, your relationships. And all of these things play a huge role into who you are and what you do. So let's try to have a little bit of an open mind when it comes to this topic and have a little bit more patience into understanding why someone did what they did and how using certain cognitive functions might have influenced that behavior, but also how other aspects, how their values, experiences, relationships, culture, religion also came into play. So thanks a lot for watching this video. I hope now the relationship or correlation is a bit clearer. I'm planning to do some more videos on this topic. I'll think of more ways in which I can help you guys kind of isolate or distinguish between mental functions and these behaviors that we notice in people, or these personality traits that we notice in people. If you have any ideas or things that you'd like to understand better with respect to this topic, please feel free to comment below. I will be very happy to take your suggestions into account. And other than that, thanks a lot for watching this video. As always, thanks a lot for being with me, and see you next week with another video on typology.